to see you.
Mary's just introducing. Go ahead, Mary, keep going.
Hi, Tim.
This lady here is and Kelleher, there's Denise, and there's Brian, and there's Timothy and Lisa. Timothy, thank you so much. I don't know what hour of the morning it is in Canada, but we appreciate this and the fact you have to get a flight at 12 o'clock our time. We just noticed the Canadian flag is right bang in the middle of our Zoom here. That's a nice sign, and you're very welcome, and we're delighted and privileged to have you join us in Cork this morning. So, Anne, if you want to say anything first, that'd be great.
Thanks very much, Mary. Good morning, everybody at Mount Mercy College. Great to see all the students there. And thank you so much, Mary, for making sure that they're exposed to the learnings around human trafficking, human rights in general. And I know from Mount Mercy for over the years, even my niece went to school there, that it's got a great tradition in the whole area of social justice and human rights. So it's really fitting that Timothy Schmalz is able to give his time to this particular school, because these are issues that are very close to Tim's heart. So we're very privileged indeed to have Tim with us here. Thank you so much, Tim, in the early hours of the morning in Ontario. And Tim will be with us for a short period of time because he has to leave. He's traveling today. Can I introduce Timothy to you in a moment, but just to let you know that accompanying us on the screen is the chairperson of APT Ireland, that's Act to Prevent Trafficking. That's Sister Denise O'Brien, who's here with us.
Good morning, everybody.
And then accompanying us this morning as well is Brian O'Toole, who is the treasurer of APT Ireland, and makes sure that we keep our books balanced and that we are able to participate and contribute as much as possible. And both Brian and Denise are both school background, teaching education backgrounds as well. So before I hand over to Tim, I just wanted to be able to say that, you know, as a Canadian sculptor all his life, and it's certainly more than 30 years, he has cast editions of life-size sculptures installed in major cities globally, and all of which make statements, some statements in relation to human rights, social justice, Catholic social teaching, awareness of the fellow human being. And some of the places that you would be aware of as students would be, for example, in the Vatican, in Rome, in Fatima, in Portugal, and even the Homeless Jesus sculpture is in Capernaum, in the Holy Land, which of course you're all aware of, is in the news very much nowadays. So Angels Unaware is the one in the Vatican, and that's probably the one that most people are familiar with. But the one that your students are most familiar with is the miniature, which Chris Timsley gave to us at APT for display and for educational purposes, and awareness raising in relation to anti-human trafficking. So Tim, would you like to maybe introduce yourself? And we're then going to perhaps have 2 or 3 questions, and all relating to what you do and why you use arts and sculpture as a powerful method of communicating. So over to you, Tim.
Well, thank you so much. I would love to talk about this, but I have a question. Is the model at the school right now?
It is. Hi, Tim.
Oh, excellent.
We have the model. It came a week ago. I heard about it during the summer. I was at a human trafficking event, and I've actually been teaching your work, particularly Homeless Jesus, as part of our Leaving Cert, your high school religion course, as an example of contemporary images of Jesus in the world. So the minute I heard about this, I said we have to bring it to our school. So thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. And that's I'm glad you have this small model there that you can look at the detail. It's exactly like the huge one, exactly. In fact, what it was the large one was scanned by a computer and it was 3D printed. So the large one is like 22 feet. And then this one is the smaller, but it's identical. And I think that the fascinating thing about this project is to give a little bit of history about the sculpture. The Homeless Jesus was a sculpture that I created in Canada. And it was first installed in Canada, and then copies of it were installed all over the world, including Dublin at the Christ Church Cathedral. And that was one of the first in Ireland, was one of the first locations that the sculpture was installed outside of America, which was very exciting. And one of the locations that the homeless Jesus was installed in was in Rome itself. And Pope Francis actually blessed the homeless Jesus, and he said it's a beautiful, excellent representation of Jesus. And at that point in time, I started to do more sculptures for the Vatican and more sculptures for Rome. And one of those sculptures was one of the biggest bronze sculptures I ever did, and that's the Angels Unawares sculpture that has migrants on a boat. And in the center of this boat is an angel, but you can only see the wings because of the crowd of people. And it was directly from scripture, which says, be welcoming to strangers. Many have entertained angels unawares. And so it suggests that all human life is sacred. Those wings of the angel belong to everyone. And Pope Francis really loved that piece, and the Vatican loved it as well. And so about, I think, a year after that sculpture was installed, the Vatican asked me to do another sculpture on the theme of human trafficking. And if the Vatican asks you to do a sculpture, you usually say yes. I didn't know anything about human trafficking. So I said, yeah, I'll do this, but tell me, what is human trafficking? Because I had no idea, like so many people, I had no idea that today, during these times, there's more slaves than any other time in history. I thought the idea of slavery was something completely in the past, hundreds of years ago. And then I realized that underneath our safe, peaceful cities all across the world, there's slavery happening, and it's kept hidden. And I remember when I first started to do the piece, the Vatican asked me to do it. I started to do it. I didn't really understand what the real idea about what human trafficking was. So I just had a kind of a slave cart made with almost like a little jail with all these victims of human trafficking in. And the problem with the piece is it looked too much like a jail. It looked too much like they were in prison. And that really didn't get the idea across of human trafficking. And then I thought, one day I was working on this, and this is a huge model. It was like this, the size of the model that you have right on display right now. And I spent weeks and weeks working on it. And then every night I would read about human trafficking. And that's my research. And it was so dark. It was so disgusting, the stuff that I read about how one human treats another human being in this world. And I remember I went to my studio, and one day I was working on my jail, and I said to myself, they're sucking our children underground. And do you know that folk tale, the Pied Piper of Hamelin? I'm sure you know it. It's where the piper got rid of the rats in the village, and then he wasn't paid by the mayor, so he played another tune with his pipe, and the ground opened up, and all these children that got kind of sucked into this underground. And that folk tale, well, actually, I heard was inspired by the plague, the disease that killed, a third of the people in Europe. And it was kind of symbolic of that. And I thought that is the perfect metaphor. That's a perfect symbol of what human trafficking is. It's like the ground in our cities are opening up, and people are being sucked into it. And so that's why I decided to do the sculpture where the people are coming out from this underground by Saint Paquita. Now, Saint Paquita was an African slave 100 years ago. And so the Vatican wants to use her as kind of the symbol of the hope of fighting human trafficking. And so she's the one that's opening up the underground and letting the oppressed go free. And so working on that piece was amazing. And it was a really haunting experience. A lot of the sculptures that I do are representations of Jesus. They're positive, they're uplifting, there's hope. And when I look at this piece here, when I see all the different ways that humans harm and abuse other humans, there's very little hope. But there is one thing, that they are coming out of the ground, and St. Paquita is saving them. And so in a sense, although it really graphically represents, you have an organ traffic person. I remember this one time, at night, I would look at human trafficking on the internet, and I'd come up with the ideas that I put into sculpture. And I think probably one of the most macabre thing is people that are cut open, and their organs are pulled out of them. They're sewn back up quickly. Their organs are sold to rich people, and these poor people are left on the streets. Most of them die, and I thought there's nothing more cruel and more upsetting than that. But there is hope, and the hope about this is that you have organizations and that are fighting this, and you have in the sculpture, the hope is represented by Saint Paquita opening up this underground. And it's fascinating because midway through the piece, I heard Pope Francis, and it's a quote that stuck with me. He said, "Human trafficking will always exist if it's kept underground." And I look at my sculpture, and that's exactly kind of the symbolic underground that is represented there. And I think I thought about, for the year I had making that, I had a great opportunity to think about evil in general. And it's not only human trafficking that only thrives, like Pope Francis said, by being kept underground. I think it's all evil. And when there's some evil thing that is not brought into light, that's how it flourishes, or that's how it exists. It's almost like daylight burns and destroys that evil. And so I think that one of the responsibilities that we all have, and what I have too, I finished the piece, and I couldn't let go of the subject matter, because these people are still oppressed. These people are still enslaved. So I thought that what I can do is try to get more sculptures like this out there in the world, to try to make this horrible situation more visible to people. And I think what we all can do about human trafficking is bring it out into, acknowledge it first of all, and see what things that we can do, where our skills are. I'm better at sculpting than anything else, so I'll do more sculptures. But people have their own skills, and so I think that one of the things that we can do when it's evil, not only human trafficking, but evil in general, is take action against it. And I like the idea of St. Paul, who said that, I'm paraphrasing, but faith without action is dead, in a sense. And I think that when we see evil and we don't do anything about it, we're not helping the world. And so that's actually what I experienced through this piece. And it's hard because it's a subject matter that you'd prefer not to think about. And I think that's another reason why it thrives, is because some evil is so ugly that it's better just to pretend it doesn't exist. But then that's how it festers, and that's how it perpetually grows and exists. So yeah, so it was an amazing experience. And to have the first cast, the huge one, went to the tomb of Saint Paquita, the African saint that's letting the people free. The sculpture, the 22-foot sculpture, got installed in her hometown near Venice. And it was really interesting because she lived around 1880 or so, and like the latter part of the 1800s. And in that village near Venice, Schio, I met people that actually their parents knew Saint Paquita, and their ancestors knew her, and everyone in the town loved her. And so it was really cool. And it was interesting. She was probably the only Black person in that whole town of Schio, because it was very, very Italian, small town. But she was embraced and loved by everyone in that town. And so it was wonderful to actually have the sculpture of her in her hometown. She was actually from Africa, and then she was sold to Venice, a rich merchant in Venice. And then the rich merchant in Venice, when she became Christian, said, "You're free, go." And then so she joined the sisters, and that's her story. And then outside of Venice, there's a small town called Schio, and that's where she lived most of her life. And that's where her tomb is right now. So I went to her tomb, and I went to her village. I went for the unveiling of that sculpture. but hopefully the idea is to have this sculpture to be placed in many different spots. So you're forced in a city to walk by and think about human trafficking and what we can do to stop it. So that was a really interesting project for me. Right now, I'm working on many different projects. I'm working on a sculpture, another sculpture for the Vatican. I'm also making another sculpture for Jerusalem right now. And so I'm always doing different pieces, but that really is a very important sculpture. So does anyone have any questions about the sculpture itself or the process of making it, or anything in general about my life as a sculptor and what I do?
If I might ask, please, Timothy, what inspires you? You've been inspiring us, so what inspires you?
What inspires you, Timothy?
Well, I believe when I was around 17, I had a conversion experience, and I realized that I was Christian. And one of the ideas when my artwork converted. I converted when I was like 17. My artwork, my sculpture converted when I was like 20. And it was interesting. It was like I took my religion out of the closet, and I thought that the best thing I could do with my life is celebrate God and all the virtues and all the good things about God. See, being an artist, what you have is a lot of artwork is out there today is full of sound and fury, but it's signifying nothing. It's all about art for art's sake. And I wanted to do something more with my art than just art for its own sake. And so my artwork is there to serve goodness. And this sculpture here is a perfect example of how I think, what better thing could you do with art other than bring awareness to some of these situations in the world? I can't think of it. So I'm doing that. That's really what inspires me. It inspires me to I have the absolute hope that humanity can better humans. And I also have the idea that artwork can do that it can be a tool for that.
Great.
Thank you. And given that there's over 100 people in this room of young people, what message would you like them to take from your art and from being with us this morning?
I think I heard you.
What message would you like the young people in the room to hear from you? There's over 100 young people in the room listening to you this morning.
Specifically with that sculpture, I would like you to take the message that like the sculpture, it shows graphic realism of human evils, but it is a positive message where the saint is freeing these people. And I think that the message is that we can't be cookies and cream about the world. But we have to be very real about the situations of the world. But there is hope, and I think that from my own experience I'm a sculptor now for all my life, and my basic understanding is that with spirituality we can actually change the world. But we need I think we need that spiritual architecture to get things done. And our culture, our mainstream culture, wants to minimize anything spiritual, anything religious. They want to say it's like Mary had a little lamb and that's about it. Christianity, from my own experience, is hardcore, and I think what we need is that intensity, that very hardcore spirituality that comes from Christianity to fight the evil. And so that's hopefully the takeaway when you see a sculpture like that, or the homeless Jesus, that what Catholicism is not cookies and cream. It's serious, and it has serious power.
Yeah. Any other question, Mary, or from the girls?
Is there anyone here from our teachers with a question? I'll read just one or two things. I have this made. Okay, we're going to gift it to you. And basically, it's a comment book that the students have been signing. And they're saying things, it's very moving, it's eye-opening. It's an educating piece that made me more aware of human trafficking, speaks gives us awareness of important topics. It's very educational, and thank you. So the impact so far, Tim, has been amazing here. We're very grateful for that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And one thing I'd like to conclude with is that her shrine area where the sculpture is outside of Venice is becoming a place of pilgrimage. People from all over the world it's actually going to her shrine outside of Venice to see her tomb. And now I challenge you all of you young children, you students, to go to Venice and to go see that tomb and to go visit her shrine. And by the way, you have to go to Venice to get to the shrine. And Venice is absolutely a rat's maze. It's a beautiful rat's maze. You will love it. You have to go there at least once in your life. And while you're there, you can see the tomb of St. Paquita and the sculpture. Thank you so much. I love talking about sculpture, and I love bringing this hope of change to the world within these pieces. Thank you.
And thank you so very, very, very much, Tim. It's been just a joy to listen to you and an inspiration. And the beauty of this is there's 100 youngsters in that room who are going to be key influential people, policymakers, artists, illustrators, every walk of life is in that room. And each of them has been inspired by you this morning to make a difference in the lives of others, informed by that whole dimension of their faith and awareness of others. So thank you for that powerful testimony this morning, Tim. And hopefully we will have the life-size, ginormous 20-foot bronze sculpture located in Ireland, in a strategic place in Ireland. There are some of us from APT working with the Department of Foreign Affairs and the OPW and the Minister's departments in the Dáil to find a location that will do justice to the message that has to be conveyed. So that's a work in progress as well. So shall I conclude everything and bring it to an end? Denise, would you as chair of ACT like to have the final word?
Well, I would just like to say thank you, not just for this. I mean, this is a very important piece, but your other pieces too. You bring a new dimension to the gospel. That's what I say. And it's just wonderful. I love that homeless Jesus. And I have been looking at your pieces on the internet. I've seen the one in Rome. And I just say the way you enliven the gospel and make it today's work, life, core of what's happening is wonderful. And
Thank you.
Thank you for the inspiration that you have and that you give to us.
Thank you.
Brian, did you want to have a little word, Brian?
Just to thank Tim for his work. I mean, it's an eye opener. It has awakened so many to your work and to the issue. But actually, while you were talking, I did what you did. I didn't get to Venice, but I went to Rome. And the only thing I wanted to see was the Angels Unaware statue. It was the only thing I wanted to see. And I was able to walk around it. I was able to touch it, which is so unlike a lot of the stuff. And I have 20 pictures here. So people hang on for a minute. I can show you some of them. But it is absolutely fabulous. And what really caught me was every religion came to see that statue. They weren't just going to the Sistine Chapel. They came to see that. And it's absolutely spectacular. So if people want to hang on for a minute, I can show them some of the pictures afterwards if that's what they want. But it's absolutely beautiful. It is just the inspiration. So thank you so much for all you do, and just keep going.
Thank you, Brian. Brian works with the Presentation Congregation, their Peace and Justice grouping. So the Presentation Sisters International. So he brings that other dimension. So I'm not sure we can keep this line open. I know that you have to go, Tim, because you are on a schedule for traveling. But Brian has those other photographs of sculptures available, and he has them ready to screen to share with the girls there in the hall. Is that okay, Mary?
I kind of lost myself in this. I zoomed myself out of it. That'd be great. We'd love to see them. Thank you very much. Tim, thanks again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. God bless you all.
Thank you, Tim.
God bless you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
And your work.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Brian, you can screen share there. Yep,
Can you see them?
super.
I'll just go through them. Can you, if you pin that, you might see it quite big. I don't know whether you can
Yeah,
do that. You probably have
you
it,
know,
yeah.
if you can pin it, you can pin it there
Oh,
yourself. I can't. It
yes.
won't allow me.
Okay, hold on now. Till I see if I.
I can spotlight each of us, but the actual sharing won't allow me to do it.
Okay, I think, can they see it? Can they see it big on the screen there, Mary?
And if you could enlarge it a little bit, it would be great, but we can't see it.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let's see if I can do that. I'm going to try it again now.
Yeah.
Screen share. Oh no, not that. Big one. Layout and options is screen share. Can you see
Double
that?
click. If you double click on that, it might go into full.
Is it
Sometimes when you, or the little arrows, see the pluses and minuses there on the right,
Okay.
up above the top. Scoot up, please. There's little
Yeah, I'm
magnifying.
going to make it big there. I've got it. It
That's
looks
it.
big there. Can you see that now?
Yeah, it's fine. I can show it.
Okay. Yeah. It's just that when I spotted it, there was crowds around it, but nobody stood still. Everybody kept walking around it. There's over 100 different nationalities represented in the statue itself. And most of them, some of them are coming from poor backgrounds. It's the push and the pull as to some people are pulled to a new country because of the attraction. Some are pushed because of issues in their own country, whether it's poverty or conflict or climate change. And these are the issues that are still causing a problem for those who are suffering at the hands of human traffickers. They're being pushed because of maybe climate, pushed because of poverty, or maybe drawn because of a better economic opportunity. And some even will take the chance, even though they're not sure of what might happen next. And you can see in some of the faces that we could see, none of them were very happy. And there's one thing that's happening now at the minute that people are very conscious of all the people who leave on a boat. Really, nobody would leave on a boat if where they lived was safe. Because the way they're trying to come across, it's not on the boats that we would travel on. They're coming across on overcrowded boats, being charged a lot of money in very unsafe conditions. Most of them are very vulnerable. And there's often a complaint that there are so many men. Very often it's a case that those who are strongest will go first. And when they establish themselves, they reach back and try and bring their families over. So you can see the statues. A lot of people put small red roses in the statues. And there are a lot of people, you can see what they're carrying. One bag is all they have. Maybe they're carrying a child, but you can see the wings. Anywhere you stand on this statue, you can see that the mother is pregnant there. And there's a lot of children in the statue, but babies, teenagers, and the faces are, they're not happy. There's an anguish, but most of them are kind of looking up. This is what kind of struck me. And you can recognize the different nationalities, but it's so clear. And I think maybe it was just a good day with the blue sky that was in it, carrying the little bits and pieces that they want. And you can see again, somebody has placed flowers in amongst them, again, holding a baby. It's funny how you can't see all of them. There are more people inside, but Tim has done a great job to capture the essence of the people who are inside. And you'd wonder, who is it that's in the middle? Is it those who are more vulnerable? That even on the boat, there is an element of care amongst those who need to be cared for. So even on the boat while they're traveling, it looks like some people are actually doing the caring for others. Babies carrying babies, one arm around 4 or 5 different people there. It's like, and then an older person, which is quite unusual for people traveling. And again, some quite well dressed, some taking a chance. That was like a lot of the Irish who left Ireland at one stage, and a whole town might have contributed to help one person leave. And then when that person left, they became the uncle or the aunt, and everybody in Ireland went to visit them. There were over 150 million people who claim to be Irish around the world. So the Irish have left more than most others. And you can see them, some don't have it as easy. And somebody there with their hand out, maybe needing a little bit of help. There were so many different faces. There were quite a few women in this picture as well, families with their eyes closed. There is that element of hope. And I think Tim said it when he said, be mindful of the angels, because it is the angels who will welcome the strangers, and there are angels everywhere. And I think the message today is really important, considering there are a lot of people today who are worried about people coming from abroad, when in actual fact, you can see the feet, when in actual fact, maybe we need to do a little bit more in order to be able to welcome the stranger. There we go. That's them. I'll stop the share. I can send you all of those if you thought they were of any use to you. It's just, it was another piece of work that Tim had done that really caught my attention. And sometimes when you're on holidays in Rome, which I had finished one thing, and I was struck by all different nationalities and religions. I thought, oh, sure, it's only going to be Catholic people, maybe Christian people go to Rome. But so many had come because they thought, this is a place that is important. But more than that too, they came to see the migrant statue, and it's right in the middle of the square. You can't miss it. But the fact that it's one of the only things in Rome, everything else in Rome, there are ropes and you can't go near it, you stand back. But this, you can actually put your hands on it. And there were people hugging it and minding it and leaning against it, and people holding it and praying against it. And it's only now I understand the significance of where Tim was coming from with his own Christianity, and the fact that he was 17 when he kind of made it sound reasonable to him, and then he was 20 when his art began to reflect how he felt as a Christian. So I'll just add those few bits, and I hope I didn't keep you out of class for too long. So thank you, Mary and Denise and Anne, for that few minutes there. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Brian. That's a very, very comprehensive. That was a bonus. That was an added bonus, wasn't it?
I just
Denise?
happened to have them here, and I loved the statue. I just loved it when I saw it. I'd go back just to see that.
Good Lord.
Brian,
Good
thanks
Lord.
very much, because I yet to go there. And Denise, would you explain a little bit to the students, please, about APT, about the work you do, how you were founded?
Denise, maybe would you like to talk a little bit about APT there?
Sorry,
It's hard.
I didn't hear the question. I didn't hear all the question. I was listening.
Yeah.
If you could explain to the students, please, and the teachers present, about APT, how it began, what's your focus, what you're working on at the moment, please, that'd be very interesting.
APT is Act to Prevent Trafficking. It was founded by one Sister Isabel, who is a medical missionary of Mary, with Sister Mary Ryan, and was Geraldine McCarthy there at the beginning?
Right, she was.
And we're coming up to celebration 20 years, right? It has changed its work in the sense that it has shifted in what it's doing, but it's been looking at preventing the trafficking of women and children over the 20 years. Women being trafficked mainly for sexual exploitation, and some of the stories, you wouldn't even want to hear them. They're beyond what you could imagine. There was a primetime program done on that a few years ago, and it was how women are taken once a fortnight. They're taken from where they are and they're brought elsewhere. And this is happening in every town in Ireland. There are no places where it doesn't happen, really. And our job, at least what we try to do, is to raise awareness of people so that people begin to think about it and look for it. There are places where it's obvious this is happening, like nail bars would be one of the places, you know, where the women are there doing the work, they're working in silence, and there is somebody supervising them. And that's often an indication that they are trafficked. There is more exposure of it now and more awareness of it. And Ireland has been criticised for what it's not doing in the TIP reports. The TIP is the Trafficking in Persons report, which comes from the States every year. And we dropped down from a B to a B minus, and they've had to do a lot of work in order to move back. And the new law that's coming through is in order to make it to look after the women and the people who are trafficked, and to look for the traffickers. It's happening, or there's a lot of associated pieces with it, really, which we can't always get into. But we're about we meet on the second Monday of every month, and that's 22 people normally meet. And as our communications person, and Brian, as you said, is the treasurer, we're working on the program for schools, captives. I think you've been doing that, have you?
Yeah, we've shown some of it, and
You've shown some of it, yes.
going to be working on more of it.
Yes, that program was put together for adults as well as for schools as well as for adults. We're in the process of, I suppose, looking at how it's done again, really. So this is, and I say it'll be always a changing program, but the content won't change. The content, the injustice, the indignity, the humiliation, the violence that these women experience is beyond what anybody should experience. And Tim talked about the organ donations. I mean, that is quite horrific, really. But women, it just doesn't bear thinking about it. Women who are virtually imprisoned by the traffickers. And sadly, some of the madams, if you like to call it, are women who support what's going on, you know. And it's even with the Ukrainians in the wartime, that was another big issue in all of the migration, you know. So I think it's a very serious issue, and it's one that maybe we can't do a whole lot about directly, but we can be aware of it, and just be aware, and maybe even just listening sometimes, and you'll hear stories, you know, and maybe then we can do something about it. But there is certainly, and pray for us and pray for the work that we're trying to do, because women need to be treated with respect, really, and with dignity. It's all this is God-given. It's not something you and I think we should give them. It's God-given, you know. And mind yourselves, too. I would say, when you go out at night, you know, just don't go off thinking that somebody's very nice, you know. I've heard stories about that as well, you know. Just be careful, just think about the possibilities, because I'm quite certain, you know, you hear about people missing in Ireland, and I wonder sometimes what that missing means, you know. So just, you know, and if your parents seem over anxious, just think that they're caring about you, you know. But do take care of yourselves, and you don't know anybody in 5 minutes, so don't go off with people just because you think they're nice, you know. Find yourself in trouble, right? So take care, take care.
And go to Venice on your holidays.
And check out the statue. Yeah.
Check out the statues, and look at the website too for Timothy, because he has some beautiful pieces there. Yeah.
So thank you, Denise. Thank you, Brian. So Anne, we'll leave the last word with you, please.
Okay. Well, I thank you very much, Mary. It's been an inspiration to see all of you young ladies there looking up and paying attention. Thank you for your time and care. This is a rare event to have a sculpture of Timothy Schmalz's standing, giving a private time to all of you. He does not do this. This is the first time that this has happened, and he won't be doing it often. In all of our Irish schools, you are the only school that he has done this for. So treasure this time. It will take a long time for everything to sink in, but treasure the information. And fair dues to you, Mary, for taking up the challenge and giving your girls the enthusiasm that you have for sharing it with the girls. And I've no doubt that this will have an impact in the days, months, years ahead. And we look forward to seeing how you young ladies are going to influence and shape Irish society and education, and do some social justice activities and events. So thank you all. Take good care. God bless.
And thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Well done. Thanks all.
Thank you, Anne.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Thanks, Denise.
I'll switch off.
See you, Brian.
Take care. Thanks a million.
Yeah.
That was great.
Thanks.